Okay, your first one out was the Nine of Wands. Can you put them the other way around? I'm attempting to get us to do this. That's yeah, much preferable. Okay, so oh, that's really annoying. What that is you repeating yourself too often. If this was you, you've said enough. I don't want to repeat myself anymore. I've said before and before and before. The choice is on the table. So that if you were negotiating with anybody, or the person that had this map in front of them was negotiating with anybody, there'd been enough talks. The Nine of Wands is letting you know that enough's been said. And it's specifically letting you know enough's been said because the Six of Cups is beside it, and the Six of Cups is the past, which tells me this is again and again and again. So it's absolute. It doesn't mean that all the time. No, it could also be somebody who has got the shits with their twins, because that Six of Cups and the Lovers card can be twins. How do you tell the difference? The person in front of you. Very definitely. What's the main theme there? Obviously the Nine of Wands. And it's the first card on the table. So you could consider the first card in the sentence to be your pitch dock. The one I want to take into account, the first one, and then I'll look at the rest of the sentence. So I've got, I am pissed off talking, the past, or the kids, choices, or crossroads. So that's how I encapsulate it in shorthand. And then I've got to be cool and turn it into a sentence. And you will every time. It becomes a really easy sentence. Yeah. That, as I look at them, what I'm very aware of is what happens in this part of consciousness. Sort of, if I could look at the rooms of consciousness, over here, the aspect of the Lovers card is telling me that this is the time of Gemini. So this is May or June. And I don't usually ignore that. I'd rather you didn't. So take that into account. Sometimes you'll sit on it till you've seen 2 or 3 maps. And when the repetition comes in, then it will bring in a Page of Swords, for example, with the Lovers card, and that'll tell you it's the time of Gemini, which is the May-June period. And so you will get backup from tarot when you're working with it. But never if you just do one map. One map won't do it for you. One map's just going to confuse the fuck out of you. Okay. So if you were to put them away and then bring out another 3, that would be a follow-on from that. Or the next person bringing their 3 cards up may also be a follow-on from what you brought out now. Yeah. So, but what's actually occurring, I feel, I don't like to say that. I actually jumped down somebody's throat for saying that this week. Just as a by note, people who say, I think this is going to happen, I feel this is what's happening, they don't know. In the language, they don't know. I feel like I'm being dismissed. That's what was said to me. I said, well, you are. They said, how can you be so cruel? I said, well, I don't employ my feelings when I want to make a statement. And if you felt like you were being dismissed, and that was according to me walking out of the room, take it as it is. So people, there are thinking people, there are feeling people, and there are saying people. And you've got, in conversation, you can have an opinion, you can make a statement, or you can raise up a consideration. But when people use the word feel too much in a sentence, they shit me, which is personal. Those 3 have got to do with enough said. Enough said. There is a crunch coming with those 3. Because the Nine of Wands is always an indication there's a crunch coming. How long can a person stand there having said what they've said or being shut up, which is the other indication of the Nine of Wands, just like happened before, time and time again, before the crossroads comes. It doesn't tell them what they're going to choose to do with the crossroads. But there's one coming. So it's being read from the 9 of Wands to the 6 of Cups to the Lover's card. Yeah? So that's why it's best to have it from, in this instance, you're mirroring, so it's back to front. So but that works for the rest of us looking. Thank you, Max. Yeah, let's get on. Next person.
Okay. Is this one?
Thank you.
Is that the right side?
Yep.
2, 3.
Okay, so anybody else? Come on, in you come. It's really easy. There is context missing. Very definitely. Who's close to going pro here? Or who's gone pro? I want to hear from you. People that are bystanders and just watching these videos for the sake of something to do on a Sunday night. That's your prerogative, and I love having you here. But when you're about to go public, I want you to come across for some answers.
I wouldn't say I'm pro, but can I have a go? They're quite so that it's like you're stuck with a kid.
Yep. That's it. That's all you need to say. That air sign woman stuck with a kid. And the implications of that are huge, aren't they? Do you know what I mean by why they're huge? Because, for example, a woman stuck with a kid without anybody else around, there's no joy showing up in those three. They're trapped, aren't they? It doesn't give you any more context either. So that person doesn't necessarily know who the Queen of Swords is, or the water sign child, the Pisces, Cancer, Scorpio child. The question that I ask myself in connection with it, is there a problem with the child? The kid could be ADHD, they could have Down syndrome, they could have been born with fetal alcohol syndrome, you name it. Because is the child that's trapped, or is the two of them together? My first indication is exactly what Fiona said, the woman and the child are trapped. Now that will happen. Particularly, I'll utilize where I lived for a long time, the Northern Rivers. Many of the younger women in the Northern Rivers areas were seduced by beautiful men who said, "You'd make a wonderful mother to my child." And then they've gone off to Bali to be little princes, and the woman's gone ahead and had the child, and all of a sudden she's stuck up in the high country of the hills at the back of Mullumbimby with this child on the breast and nobody, and she's getting the sole parent's pension, and she can't afford a truck. So it's terrible. She's literally trapped in that house in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing about that gives her. The next three may give her freedom, but these three don't. They just said the woman and the child are stuck. Yes. Thank you. Next three. Go. Oh, hang on. There's three up there already, Victoria.
Sorry, I went. Is that okay?
I know what this is. Come on, everybody. They're quite simple. The last one was simple. This is simple. Simplicity doesn't mean lacking in complexity, by the way. But what this is like the last one with the woman stuck, with the woman and the child are stuck. These are like the cap on the top of what could be a vast amount of information that will unfold during a reading. Anyone?
Earning money, like doing lots of doing.
Oh, you're not supposed to say.
Okay, not me.
No one? There's two indications here. One is that they haven't read the terms and conditions, because they're paying out, obviously. But you see the sneaky bit in the background to do with the words? How many people here read when you go to sign up for anything online? How many people here read the terms and conditions? I don't. How simple is it just to click the box? Now, what could follow that could be really interesting. So we don't know what this person's paying for. There's that. Now, the only other thing that it can be is this young person attempting to get out of paying what they owe. That fire sign, Sag, Leo, or Aries, attempting to get out of paying what they owe. So it leaves you wondering, where's the big story? You're not always going to get the big story. But you will when you've got 7 lots of those 3s on the table. And then when you repeat it after you've done the dead reckoning, and then when you repeat it by doing the Stargate, and then when any sequence in associate, because that person's going to keep on shuffling them, and the cards, 1 or 2 or 3 of them are going to keep on turning up for the whole of that session. So you can reserve your judgment of what you're looking at until you've seen more. You don't have to interpret, as I said to Fiona this week, you don't have to interpret one card after the other after the other. That's to your detriment. You'll get trapped there. So you do need to look at them holistically. So let's get on to the next 3. First one up. Second one. Oh, no, put them the other way, please. Thanks. Okay, cool. And the third one. Oh, well, that's obvious. That is obvious. Don't overthink it.
Is it burnout? Like someone going through burnout?
No.
Is it carrying a heavy load and hurting their back?
Yep. Transporting a heavy load and hurting themselves. Rather than saying carrying,
Transporting because the Knight of Wands.
the Knight of Wands there is transporting a heavy load and then they hurt themselves. Yeah. It doesn't have any indication of psychology around it. It doesn't have any indication of anything else. It's just got to do with moving the fridge kind of thing. Simple. Thank you. Yep. Don't move the fridge, Victoria. Okay, next person, 3.
Are we just pulling out 3 cards?
Yeah, just the first one for first up, and the next one goes to your left of that.
Yep.
Next one goes to your left of that. And just get talking because you're not showing up in the little bottom there.
There we go.
Okay.
Hmm.
Interesting. What's your first intuition?
First of all, I thought of like the past, like parents, grandparents, maybe something happening to them, but I'm not sure they've got strength.
Think about parents in there.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to chuck in a metaphor, which is really, really annoying, but it is. It's each separation makes you stronger. So I guess the perfect example would be when my son was talking to my grandson, who had a split up with his first girlfriend, and he was desolate. And he went to Jared and he said, I'm my heart's broken. I don't think it was actually quite suicidal as a 14-year-old. It was his first love.
Mm.
And Jared burst out laughing. And Ronan, of course, was very upset at that. Jared said, every heartache I've ever had has led me to Juniper and you. So just be glad it's happened now, because the next love may also break your heart. That's it. I mean, there was nothing to indicate in those two. If there was another card beside the Six of Cups, I would think it was a heart attack, or that the person had a very, very problematic heart. I could guess and say that had heart problems before, but the Strength card is an indication, literally. The Strength card is not before the Three of Swords. And heart attacks do tend to make a person very vulnerable. It doesn't give that strength. The Strength card is like fucking big and solid and bull tough. And in this instance, it could also, and I say could also because it doesn't feel like it. It could also have the sensation of a person who really starts physically looking after themselves when the children leave, which a couple of you have just seen as well as fitting in there. But there would be an interim situation, because as anybody who's ever had adult kids leave home know, you do go through empty nest syndrome first. So you go through grief first. There's no grief following that. There's no Nine of Swords. There's no Four of Pentacles. There's no waiting. It's just straight into the bull in the paddock kind of thing. So that there's a really strong focus on the Strength card here, even more so than the Three of Swords. The Three of Swords is my automatic go-to in any map. I'm going to go straight to what are they losing, or what's going to cause harm here. And I'm seeing it more and more and more to do with hospitalizations since vaccinations, because there's so many people who had so many heart attacks. It's huge, the numbers of people who have had heart attacks since the COVID vaccinations, particularly the Pfizer. And yes, getting them everywhere as clients, and then people, their parents, their children, their relatives who have all died or gone through massive surgeries, etc. But there's no indication here of that. It's just that loss, that sense of, there's hard. Three of Swords, you can't get away from it being horrible, ever.
Mm.
Oh, except once. I'm sorry, Mira. The only time that I do see it as being interesting, not necessarily horrible, is when an infant is born. So that process of leaving the mother's uterus and coming into the light of day and coming into life, that also will show up as a Three of Swords, but you'll have an Empress card there, and your very Sun card come with it. Okay, Mira, what were we going to say?
I wondered whether the Six of Cups can mean something from the past that's inherited, like an inherited heart issue.
Yes.
Okay, that was the first potential thing that I saw, and maybe with Strength, that means working with an inherited.
There's no
heart.
indication of working with. When you said inherited heart disorder, I can get that,
Okay.
but there's no working with it. That would have, if that showed up in other areas, it would have to do with work. The Eight of Pentacles would have to do with the Temperance card. There would be a Nine of Swords. There would be a process of even an Eight of Pentacles where there was this slow growth period, getting to the stage where they were physically fit. But inherited heart disorder, yes. Sure. Cool. Thank you. Next week. That would be genetic heart disorder. Cool. Come on.
Shall I go
Come on.
next?
Yes.
Oh. Can you see that?
You've got to start talking because you've got to come up on screen.
Okay. So we have the Three of Pentacles,
What one came first?
the three.
Then put them in the order from your
The
Right.
middle one is the Seven
what
of
I don't,
Cups.
yeah, I know. So just in the order they came out. The first one off the top is where?
Oh, sorry. Is the Ace of Cups.
Okay, then the Seven of Cups and then the Three of Pentacles. Okay, that one's very
Yeah.
easy. Very easy, people. Come on. What's the first thing you get?
Could it be a diagnosis of depression?
No, there's no moon card there.
Okay.
But
Some
you're close.
decision, some
Close. There would need to be a lot of other cards around it, very definitely, but that person is going to have the discussion about the fact that they're being lied to about love. Victoria got it. Didn't say a word. Look at you cracking up down there. That's exactly what they said. Yeah.
Could it be I don't know what they're called, say a
Gaslighting.
pardon?
Gaslighting.
That, but I like a political propaganda where someone announces a not political. Okay.
It's too personal. Yeah. The Three of Pentacles is where, I mean, you'll get this with a person who's been gaslit. So they have a discussion. They've got to have a discussion. The discussion's the Three of Pentacles. Okay. So because the Ace of Cups is just full of wankery, and the Ace of Cups is just full of wankery. It's fluff. The Seven of Cups just makes it delusional. Now, what's the good example? Good example of somebody saying, "I love you, but." How many times has a parent heard that from their kid? Yes. How many times is a person who ends up in the divorce courts or ends up splitting up from their partner? How many times is that said? But I love you. No, I really love you. And yet that Seven of Cups says it's a lie. It's delusional. It's a lie. So what happens in a case like that is you sit down and you have the discussion with the person. The Three of Pentacles in this is very significant insofar as whoever you're reading for has got some savvy about them. Or they will have after they left your table. Because the Three of Pentacles is an indication that there's much more to the connection than just the emotion. There may very well be property or money or finances or other securities involved in the situation. And that's why I'm suggesting it's the equivalent of gaslighting. Or you could have coercive control in there, but the point is that it's still bullshit. So there's no sense of sleuthing. I don't mind a good sleuth. You get it's similar thing could happen with, particularly if you had the Seven of Swords, which we haven't got a Seven of Swords, but if we had a Seven of Swords in there, there's a bit of catfishing happening. Now, the catfishing doesn't have to be online. It could be just somebody who says and then sneaks out somewhere, but it can also indicate with the Seven of Swords, a person who's sneaking into another person's factors. I'll get something similar to this when there's going to be a divorce. Or the person's really going, is my wife actually cheating on me? You'll get that question. And you'll get those three with a couple more out with it. And you go, I suggest you have a big sit-down discussion. This is where you can be pleasant. I suggest you have a big sit-down discussion about the consequences of them doing that. You may agree, but have you got a prenup? What about the possessions that you have in common if something should come and you should split up? Because it can be with the Three of Pentacles is not having the next card. It doesn't tell you what the outcome to the discussion is going to be, does it? It just brings the preliminary situation into account. That love is an easy word to say, but actions, people, actions Okay. And yes, it can be delusional, very definitely delusional, but not in the way of psychology, because there's a real sense of meanness with the Seven of Cups there that needs to be discussed. The person can just be an absolute flipper tripper. I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. Okay, well, let's find out whether you really do. Let's have a discussion about how many times I cook your meal. Let's have a discussion about how many times you vacuum the room. And let's have a discussion about how many times you do the fucking lawns. Let's have a proper discussion about what practicalities you employ instead of saying, oh, I love you, so don't ask me anything. I mean, how many people here have got relatives who say exactly that? How many times have people in regions where there are a whole lot of alternative lifestyle people, do they say, I love you, and they've never fucking met you?
Yeah.
That's that. Put your money where your fucking mouth is. That's exactly sort of how that comes about. So you're dealing in here with the fallacy of love and the need to discuss what that actually means eventually. Yeah. Who else haven't we done?
Me.
Please. One. First one out.
Can you
Goes
see
to
it?
your left. Yeah, next one goes to your left of that. That's interesting. Next one goes to the left of that. Now, isn't that interesting?
Same as before.
There was the Queen of Swords, Page of Cups, the Eight of the Seven or whatever. Fucking numbers bother me. I'm dyscalculia. She's tied up. So the problem comes through now as being that kid. Now, did the air sign woman have the child yet? Has she yet to decide whether she's going to carry on with the pregnancy? Does she can she raise that child on her own? How much is going to go on with that kid is concerned? This child is heavy. But the Ten of Wands is never a problem on its own. The Ten of Wands, you're handling it. So it's obviously the fact that whoever the Queen of Swords is, she decided she can do this. She can do this. She can deal with this problem child, can't she? Because of that Ten of Wands. Can you see that, people? Just give me a bit of a nod. And it's interesting that was kind of the first three out. So question then raises itself up is, have the other cards that all of you have been putting up, do they form a full sentence? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. See, in a grove map, I've got 7 lots of threes. And there's been 7 lots of threes turn up here on the table. So without going back over each of the 3 sequences, it's not, they ultimately, I would say, form a full story. Do you get it? Does tarot want to play with us? Always. Is tarot serious when it wants to play with us? Always. Okay, so I think that's enough for tonight. Has anybody got anything they want to talk about particularly?
Well, so I'm interested, do you think the story, the 7, so that was really amazing, that last 3 to
That was just, it was just fucking
like,
showing us.
yeah. So, but this, yes. I don't know, like the story of the 7, can we put it together, or is it?
I'd love to put it together. I'd love all 7 lots of threes to come together somehow. Does anybody want to take that on as a challenge to put all? How the fuck are we going to do that? I mean, I'll have to go over the video and lay it all out and take a photograph, wouldn't I? But it would make absolute sense, even down to the love that was a delusion, because, in that particular instance, if you've got a child who's got a disability or is completely uncontrollable in a way, they can say, I love you to the house, or you can say, but I love this child. And a person perhaps who's a medical doctor or someone who's in a position of being an amatura counselor or psychic is going to say, you prepared to go through the practicalities of what you've got to do to keep this young person safe? They may have a heart anomaly, like came up with the idea of it being an inherited heart anomaly. Each one of your maps is in some way of consequence to the first three on the table, and then aren't they?
Mm.
And even coming down to Marcia and that choice to be made. Yes. Are there twins in there in this instance? Is there twins in the family? Is that of consequence in some way to the situation? Okay. Is there a frustration? I mean, a very interesting, the nine of wands that came out, like I've said enough and no one's fucking listening. I mean, I can, again, this is where all your personal experiences are all so imperative. And I don't know whether I've said it here, but I have said it to other people, particularly in association with tarot and particularly in association with witchcraft, is that you don't come out of this sweet. You don't come out of this unscathed by life. You come out of this like blackened and bloodied and bruised and dragged through the fucking gravel, and you've got mushrooms growing out of your eyeballs and fucking bamboo spikes down your fingernails, because tarot wants you to know as much as you possibly could know so that you can then interpret to that extent. Now, a perfect example with that nine of wands and the choices that come down in connection with a child, it's not the same instance at all, because I'm not a queen of swords, and one of my offspring is a page of cups. And the midwife concerned did say abort this child, by the way, when I was pregnant with Jared, who is a Pisces, because I'd had toxoplasmosis from digging in the garden where there was cat shit. And she said that can create some incredible physical disorders to your child, your unborn child. So there was a choice to be made there regarding having the child or the abortion. And did I know the consequences? Was I supposed to know about that? Sure. So there's that instance that comes in there, that are you taking on a responsibility that could potentially be a burden for years and years and years? That can happen. So there's many instances it comes back to that first map of those two people, the adult and the child, and the restraints and restrictions that are associated with that. Okay. A single woman deciding who finds herself pregnant, is she, and who has, for example, a heart condition that's genetic within the family, is she prepared to take that risk? All of these things would have turned up in all of the different maps today. The consequence of love. It's no point saying, for example, that came up with Alice, no point saying, oh, but I love this child, when you don't even know this child. You need to discuss the consequences of that might just be a silly, lovely sentiment, but it doesn't do any good if your child needs calipers because they've got polio. What's the consequences of dealing in here with a child like that? I know as a single woman, when I had my child in 1972, for 3 years, I sought out somebody who would not call me an hysterical woman, because I knew there was a problem with my son. And he ended up being ADHD. And recommended Ritalin or an extremely good diet. This was in 1974, for fuck's sake. But completely knowing the facts and knowing the restraints and the restrictions around it all, these things are what these 7 lots of threes tonight seem to do. Yeah, putting them together, I think, is a brilliant idea, but and it may very well apply for each of you with a client that you have got sitting in front of you. But your knowledge of the 7 lots of 3 and how they all come together to form a whole picture has just been completed by that last 3 that came out on the table to do with the water sign child and the responsibility with that 10 of cups, with that 10 of wands earlier. Was the person willing to take on that responsibility? It was good. This was fucking juicy tonight, people. When I take the whole lot into account, they all seem trivial until you put them together.
Mm.
Then tarot goes, snare drum, please. Boom. So that's it. Okay.
Which one was the first 3?
The first 3 was the Queen of Swords and the Page of Cups and the 7 of Swords.
No, because that was mine and I didn't go first.
Who went first, please? Was it
Marcia?
Marcia?
It was Marcia. She had the 9 of Wands, 6 of Cups, and the Lovers.
Yeah, 9 of Wands, 6 of Cups, and the Lovers. Okay. Which is very, it doesn't say anything in regards to the whole pattern. Unless we take into account the fact that the person concerned may have 2 children and wants to, and finds herself pregnant with another one, and does she want to take that on? You see, we still haven't got the whole picture. But there's the crossroads, the first 3 out. Because didn't it have the 6 of Cups in there?
Yep. Yes.
And wasn't there a 9 of Wands? Like, oh fuck, I'm so tired of this. And then came the choice. And then went from you, Marcia, and it moved across to there to the air sign woman and the Page of Cups. And then who was after the air sign woman, Page of Cups, and the 7 of Swords, please? Who was after, you know, what came in the third one out?
Fee was after.
Yeah, nobody talks about the terms and conditions. There was that idea of how much it's going to cost. I could, if it was the one person, I could put them together and see the pattern. All separately, they all make no sense. They're kind of like whatever. You know, so the nitty-gritty, if we're talking about that woman and that child, the nitty-gritty then comes through with Fiona's lot. First of all, it's a choice. Then there's the idea of restraint and restriction. Then there's like, have a look at the terms and conditions, read the whole story before you decide, kind of thing. Who came next? I think it was Victoria. Yeah, and your 3 were.
That was about the back and the moving though, wasn't it? And don't hurt your back.
Yeah, carrying a heavy load and hurting the back.
That can work.
Carrying the baby.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
carrying the baby, but also taking on that responsibility.
Yeah.
Because the 10 of Wands is taking a responsibility unwillingly. And the 10 of Swords is like, could the 10 of Swords in that instance, if we're looking at a whole person's cards, and I bet she turns up for one of you for a reading. For one of us. Fine, and I'm going to go, oh, just pay me $200 and go, I already know how this works out. You're going to keep the child. Yeah, taking on the responsibility of it all. Because the one thing about taking on the responsibility of a child when you've had 2 and you're going to go for, and you find yourself pregnant with a 3rd, it's like, well, the first 2 didn't work out very well, did they? And there's no indication anywhere. There was no kings turned up, were there?
No.
So it all fell on the air sign woman, didn't it? It all fell on the Queen of Swords, everything. Fucking everything.
Feeling pretty grateful to be an earth sign right now. It's like absolutely not me.
I don't think it's anybody in the room, to be quite honest. But I think it's a really good case in point that tarot will show us. And now we can revisit the whole thing, which is frustratingly what I was hoping we could do at some stage, is to be able to sort of like see that tarot's done this before with that King of Swords, though, twice.
Could it be taking on someone else's child in a relationship? You know, like you not giving birth to the child, but you taking on
A child taking on the
a
responsibility.
child.
It's still taking on that responsibility. It doesn't. There's a tricky thing here, and this is a very, very interesting point, though, Fiona, because a child is not my child. So there's this question of possession that comes into the equation that we need to be very careful of. I can say to a person, I'm looking in there, I've got a page of wands, page of wands, and the King of Wands, Page of Cups, Queen of Cups, Page of Pentacles, Page of Swords. I'm going, how many fucking kids have you got? She'll say 5. So there's one younger, one older. There's one younger, one older. And then there's the other 3. You see, there's the other one in there, and then you could have a couple more. So it gets weird like that. You can just see that there's a lot of people connected with that one person. Whereas Tonight, they're not. Tonight, they're just talking about the one person, that Queen of Swords, and the one child, and the ramifications of that one child. Anything else would be guesswork. Are there other children concerned? Is she involved in a relationship? Is she too old to have a child? Is she going to go and have that child on her own? Which is another thing which could happen with IVF. A lot of people nowadays are having children, choosing to have their eggs frozen and then have their children older. And there could also be problems associated with the fetus in these instances. Can you hear how it all sort of merges together? But when you've got 7 lots like we've got here, we've got a story. Even if the story is 7 seemingly disparate 3s, when you put them together, if that was the one client in front of me, fucking easy. Easy. Even with the 3 of Swords and the Strength card, you can see that that could be a separation from the past there as well. And she's pregnant, or she's had the child. Can she raise this child alone? How's that going to go? What's going on with the mind with the Ace of Cups and the 7 of Cups that Alice brought out? So there's a whole lot that's looking at. I explained it this week. There's being a Rubik's cube. It actually needs to be looked at. This is why I'll do the Dead Reckoning, the Grove. I'll do 7 lots of 3, which is, I'm sorry, every 7th card, which is going to be other people and things. There'll be the Stargate. There'll be a warning map. There'll be then the continuum took place there. Quite often I'll look at the other 2 piles that the person hasn't chosen, just have a quick look like on the first map, and then I'm going to give them 3 questions. That's a lot of maps. But over an entire reading, this is experience. It repeats and repeats and repeats and repeats, but it looks at it from this angle, looks at it from that angle, looks at it from a distance, looks at the ramifications according to the person's health. We'll pull back, see who else is in that person's life, see what's going to come to a degree. With the question time, tarot is going to come in as a third party. If the person asking the question is really stupid because they don't remember everything that happened in part 1, and if they repeat and they ask the question in part 1 that's been repeated over and over and over again all through part 1, tarot is going to be so rude to them. Absolutely rude. And I'll warn the person. I'll say, tarot is being extremely rude to you, and I'd really rather not tell you what it's saying. And the person concerned will say, why? I said, because it's been answered and answered and answered and answered, and it just makes no sense. It means you didn't hear anything. And so then you can have a dialogue about that person's inability to concentrate. And they'll ask a question that requires concentration and knowing what that then you can reduce the question down to what it really means and what they really want to ask, particularly if everything's been answered. Or you could get 1 card as the answer, which is yes or no. And then it's up to you to be able to ask, to get more cards out there, to give more meaning to it. But it's not necessary. Quite often if a person says, am I going to get the new job? Ace of Wands. Oh, there you go. Yep. Next question. I don't need to have a whole lot of fucking details, and I don't need to follow my own principles. You see, I can just chuck them out. And you get the answer quick, you get the answer quick. Like all of these tonight were quite snappy, but you put them together, we've got a complicated person's life. That Queen of Swords. And not only is a complicated person, but so is the child, because is the child young? That child may be an adolescent. That person could be a foster carer. We don't know who she is. We only know that we've been reading, all of you have been reading the cards for an air sign woman tonight. Now, can each of the 3 lots apply to each of you individually? Yes. But are they also an example of what you're going to get in a tarot reading with another person? Yes. The one thing today that I'm very aware of, because I'm going back over some of the old videos and erasing a lot of them, is that what's important in any of this work is the questions we ask, not the answers. It's the questions that we ask. It's how we ask the questions, how we look at it, how we reference it, how we frame it. I'm not going to say this is absolutely this and it can't be anything else, because of course it could be. And I remember when I met Joy Norton years ago, the Queen of fucking Bendigo Tarot. She was so busy. She worked 7 days a week. She's sending somebody sneaking down to the Kyneton market every fucking Saturday to get their cards read by me to find out because they're looking for somebody. And eventually I said to her, she came down for the 4th reading and 4th Saturday in a row, I said, go back and tell your boss, I'm not going to do you anymore. And she snuck out. And the following Saturday, this woman comes in, sits down, picked up my tarot card. It wasn't this pack. It was my normal reading pack, which is like the size of a brick. Because I wear them to death, wear them out. And she went to touch them. And I could see the look on her face, like as if it was a fucking funnel web spider in front of her instead of a pack of cards. And she picks them up, she's shuffling, and I threw them out, and it had, I can't remember it exactly, but it had the 10 of cups. It would have been Krama, the high priestess card, and it would have had a work card. It would have had 8 of pentacles above that. It would have had a 9 of swords below that. She was stressed out. She was working from home. She's a tarot reader. I said, I'll do you if you'll do me. And she said, where do you see that? She said, what do you mean? I said, because you're a tarot reader and you work from home. She said, where do you see that? She didn't read anything like me. Absolutely didn't read anything like me. But she needed somebody to please come up on the weekends and take over her weekend clients. And so she'd been sending her little friend Lynn around to every possible person who was reading cards in the region to see if she could find somebody who was even remotely viable. Happened. And of course they hated me, but I can still remember the first person who came. There was a warning spread. The person concerned was a social worker. She was absolutely gorgeous. Her warning spread was, you're going to leave your husband. Please stay a little bit.
Oh.
She said, what? I said, please stay. She said, how long for? I said, a month. She said, but I've had him. I want to leave now. I hate his guts. I don't remember the rest of the reading. All I can remember is asking her to stay a month. Trust me, stay a month. He dropped dead from a coronary. She didn't have any complications. All the money went to her. He was a doctor. He had a lot of fucking money. And then another, the one that sealed the deal was a guy who came for reading. I don't remember anything at all. At the end, he pats his pockets. He said, oh, I forgot to bring my wallet. I said, well, if you're lying to me, your car won't start. And he went outside after the reading and his car wouldn't start. He had to call the NRMA or the RACT or whatever, RACV or whatever it was. And while he's waiting for the car, Joy Norton asked him to come in and said, do you want a cup of tea while you wait? He said, I'm just going to pay her. Produced $25. So it's kind of that, and I was the new kid on the block. They didn't want me. And that nobody's going to want you either. They're going to think, I mean, they're still coming here in Tasmania for the first time. And it's a little bit of what the fuck. And I'll let you know why, because there's 7 of you, and you've done 7 lots of 3 tonight, and it could very well be for the same person. This is the way tarot works. It's not predictable, but it's right. And it's right so many times that, and you could be called an absolute charlotte. It doesn't really matter when you've got it. I mean, I hear a lot of you getting it as well. And that is so fucking fruitful. I feel so fucking good about that. It's like, oh, I can be in the company of my peers, and it's just, yeah. It's really, and then when you've got a glitch problem, it's great. Get on the phone to collaborate. What the fuck is this, you'll say? And you could say to your client, hang on a second, I need to collaborate with my colleague here. Get on the phone, go, look at this, tell me, I'm seeing this, am I correct? Am I close? It's like, fuck yeah, look at that. Can I see the rest of it? Oh, and then the person opposite is going to go, what's going on? I'll go, I'm not the only one. This one worked with this one. And they're going to want to know where you are. And I'll tell them. So when they're visiting, and they know people in that area, they're all going to come. And you're never going to be without work. Once it gets going, once you hit that button and you get it right, and you trust yourself that this is not about you, this is never about you. You're just this fucking vessel. But you've got to trust yourself enough to know it's not about you. Because a few people have made the mistake of thinking it was about them. A, they crash. And B, people end up hating them. I can think of 2 people in the Northern Rivers. Both went through that. And they both crashed and burned. And unfortunately, one of them still working, the other one dead. I think she's still working. Some spells take longer than others to come into fruition, but I'm not allowed to talk about that. Yes.
Speaking of timing, I wanted to ask whether anyone wanted to look back at the maps that we did around this time last year, because a couple of the February one from last year, some of the pieces are only playing out for me now. But some of the pieces played out a couple months back and some now. So I'm sort of trying to relook at that one. And then, Law, I think the August video is missing, and that's one of the ones I wanted to look back on, because
Good old
some of
video.
those, there's a
There's just-
part, there's a
there's
part
not-
one that's there, but not a part two.
Whatever's missing is gone.
Um,
I mean, I've tried to go
Fabulous.
through, today I went through to try and be unmessy, because I can be really messy, because I'll upload and then, like even the last Witchcraft 500, I got so sick of hearing my own voice that I just couldn't finish it. And that's unfortunate that happens, and that I can do the Rain Man, and it fucking annoys me when I listen back. So, but it doesn't sort of matter, because they're going to happen anyway. And I think I mentioned last time I had that woman who had the warning from 25 years ago that I could see her living in a house with a murderer. Get out the only available exit. 21 years it took for that warning to unfold. And she thought she'd forgotten until the event, and she hadn't forgotten. But the most important thing also is that even though it's not fully there, it's really important for you as a medicine woman, as a person who's doing this work, also as a mystic, to not rely on what you've had as a reading, unless it's here at the table with me in the room, in privacy, not in a group setting. Tarot is not going to do that to you. It's not going to harm you by having anything too importantly private turn up in front of 6 other people.
Mm.
I think you should all know that no matter which way we go with this, ultimately it's a teaching aid. Yeah. But
I think
if you
that's
don't-
why I wanted to see, if anyone else has got personal stuff that's come up from the last year of readings, just to
Absolutely
compare.
have. I was, I think it was last year. It was a couple, just me and Marcia with her, and yeah, Law hit the nail on the head a few times with me with what I showed, and like it made me laugh actually. But anyway, very spot on. I can't repeat it because it's
don't
yeah.
repeat it.
It was a very intimate, actually. It was quite nice, but yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I'll go through them this week, hopefully. And this week I've got to get I've been a bit blah because I've got all these, the last lot of skin cancers getting cut out, and I'm full of holes. And I'm also getting more ink tomorrow, getting ready to move, getting it all done before I leave the island, which is in April. I really want to clean them up, because I'm such I'm so extraordinary 5 of Wands. When I get carried away with editing, and there's no excuses. It just is what it is. Don't have to defend myself from there. I'll see if I can find a mirror, get them up there, but they're all private. They're all sort of like they're not private. They're actually unlisted. That's all. They're only available to you guys. Yeah. So I'll go through, put all the unlisted ones together, but YouTube's a little bit annoying like that. It just means I've got to go through fucking everything to find them. Yeah. Anything else?
We haven't got time for another map, have we?
What?
We haven't got time for another map, have we?
No, it's 10 to 10.
Okay, yeah.
And what actually happens is when we do too much in a night, I want to go onto the maps. I want to get the journey cards out of the way first, and then go on to doing the dead reckonings, because I think that's really, really significant. Dead reckoning, dead reckoning, dead reckoning. Next time we get together, it's just going to be all dead reckonings. Yeah, just the one. And like I was saying to Fiona this week, going pro, because Fiona's is going to work with is working with people. It's just stick with the dead reckoning and work it and work it and work it, because that one's going to give you what, once you know where your placements are, like knowing what's in the center, what's crossing. When it crosses it, for example, it can either grace it or be of detriment, just knowing that, or simply an extension of the statement that's in the middle. And what's above it? So you've got the first one down, then you've got the one that crosses it. The one above it, which is card number 3, is either somewhere else or it's in the person's mind, in mind, or the way they think. And then what's at the foundation seems to be the most obvious thing. What's to the left of it is always what's already gone, but always of influence to the future. Tarot's not going to bring it up if it's just voyeurism. It's same with looking at the past. Tarot's never going to look at the pack of the past and think that and just go, oh, when you were 3, this happened. When you were 6, this happened. But sometimes it can be actually spot on. It'll go, oh, look at 2007, the person will fall off the chair. And it can be, sometimes you don't even have to say what it is. You'll sit there and you'll look at their past, for example, and you say, what the fuck? How are you still alive? And bang. Then we go from there. So I'm giving them a kudos for being alive and having, no matter what. If you bring out one thing out of another, it's like bringing out A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It doesn't make any sense until you make it into words and sentences. Kind of thing. The one in front of it. So you've got the center, the one that crosses it, above it, below it, to the left of it, which is the past, to the right of it, which is what's coming, which is influencing what's coming. The 4 up the side is the self, the environment, hopes and fears, which is never anything real, no matter what's there. And 9 times out of 10, I'll ignore that card. I keep it in consciousness, but I don't bother telling the person. And then you've got your outcome, but the outcome is only for the moment. Is what comes next. And then you put the 3 to the side, which can be just a random factor. That random factor can be you running into somebody that you haven't seen for 20 years and going for coffee. And there's another whole story happening beside the main one. So your dead reckoning is really cool. It's a very, very cool map. The dead reckoning, you know what that actually means, don't you? A dead reckoning in nautical terms. Map making.
Where you are, like
exactly where you are. Yeah, your exact position that you've worked out, you've triaged exactly where you are. Yeah. So I called it that on purpose. Same as they call the horse latitude as the warning map. Do you know what the horse latitude is?
Was it something about them
Yes,
throwing?
I do. Yeah.
Go on. You go.
Fiona, you're in the center there.
Oh, I thought Michelle was going to say it.
No, you can go. You go.
Was it something about them throwing horses off a ship or something?
It's in the doldrums. It's an area of the Caribbean where quite often the wind doesn't blow, and when we had sailing ships, the bottom of the ship is where all the horses were kept, all the sheep, all the chickens, the dogs, cats, canaries. People were fucking, people were dying, people were giving birth. We're talking 3 months at sea. And when it came to the horse latitude, is usually where there's 2 things happen. The horse latitude, which is an actual, you can look it up to probably Wikipedia, I fucking know. The horses are considered the most prized possession. If you've got a horse, you're quite likely to be a very well-to-do person. Most people didn't in the days of sailing ships. And you've got people traveling to the New World and people traveling to Australia, etc., New Zealand and the Caribbean. And if your horse died, there's your money. And they used to carry the horses in slings. And when they died, because there was no water, you get to the stage where the horse latitude and the doldrums, you know where the doldrums are, no wind. You know, this is where the rhyme of the ancient mariner came from, that story about T.S. Eliot or whoever it was, whatever his name is, or somebody else. Mental block. The doldrums are where the wind won't blow, the sails won't blow. If you haven't stocked up enough, you charm. And there was also that when we got to the stage, that particular part of the journey before we hit the Cape of the Horn. That was where also the sailors got paid in rum. So they very often made hobby horses, and they'd get pissed off their faces and would do their hobby horse thing all around the deck. So it was called the horse latitude for two reasons. One was the death and the other one was the booze. Yeah. So that's why it's a warning spread. Because your warning spread, you can see it coming and you can stock up beforehand and know what to do about it. And you know the outcome to if you don't do it, which is very often death. So they're really handy to have. The Stargate does fuck people up who haven't done Kabbalah, who don't have a really strong handle on Kabbalah. But once you've got a really strong handle on Kabbalah, it's so easy. And it's so significant when you're looking at a person's health. You'll pick every fucking time what's going on for that person. So, and you do need to let them know beforehand that it's quite often a health issue or anything to do with health will come up there. And as such, in many ways, it's fantastic when a person heals, because you'll see a chariot, won't you? In the sphere of self. If they've been sick, that means they're better. Anyway, I don't want these sessions to be too long because I've got to edit them up. And it's not the editing up, it's whether or not I can, it takes me hours to cut my own mouth out of it. But to be able to put it in there and have context. I'll see if I can find that one from August 2nd. I'll see if I can get them in order. But everything's all W500s and tarot bits and anyway, love you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So fun. Bye, everyone.
See you
Thanks,
tomorrow.
everyone.
Or before that.